So the key to helping your child shift from a negative to a positive approach with any of the four goals is to do the unexpected. You have to break the pattern that the child has come to expect and avoid the payoffs that have maintained those mistaken ideas. So we want to keep in mind that a misbehaving child is usually a discouraged child. Each of those four negative approaches of misbehavior represents an increasing level of discouragement, from the undue attention seeking to avoidance. If your child is into revenge or avoidance, it could take considerable time and effort, maybe even outside help, to redirect them to the level of encouragement where they're in a success cycle. We have to be patient. We have to use our active parenting skills, and we have to keep encouraging them. So we're going to look at a little bit more closely at each of those four negative approaches. So a mother recently told me about the terrible tantrums that her 4-year-old daughter would fly into when she didn't get her way. And finally, the mother was trying to engage her daughter in some problem solving about whatever various tantrums she was having. And she asked what she could do to help her daughter avoid the meltdowns. And her daughter replied with the slightest bit of irony, "Just do what I want." So the child who seeks belonging through undue attention seeking probably has the mistaken belief that they have to be the center of attention in order to belong. And these children find ways to keep people busy with them. An undue attention seeking child may act forgetful, helpless, lazy. They're going to put the parent in their service with reminders and coaxing. Or the child may get attention by clowning or asking questions or pestering or making a nuisance of themselves. And they may even resort to positive behavior, but only if there's a parent to watch. And when the parent hears, "Look at this, mommy," over and over and over again, even positive behavior can be for the wrong purpose. And adults typically feel annoyed or irritated during these interactions. And when we correct the child, he's usually going to stop the misbehavior. After all, our correction has given the child the attention that they're seeking. But the child will usually want more contact soon, and they will resume the behavior. And we usually tend to remind, nag, coax, complain, give these little mini lectures, scold the child, and otherwise stay in contact with the child. And that attention is the payoff that reinforces the child's mistaken approach to achieving the contact. So to these children, even the negative attention is better than no attention. So how do we avoid paying it off, right? First, we want to act more and talk less. And when we must discipline, we want to briefly confront the child with an I message or a logical consequence. We want to help the child achieve the recognition and the contact that they want by playing a useful role. So we can help find meaningful ways for that child to contribute to the family while ignoring some of their unproductive attention-getting behavior. We can also teach the child how to play alone by introducing hobbies and other activities. The ability to say no is very powerful. Every 2-year-old quickly learns that. And of the four negative approaches, rebellion is the most common, and it creates the most distress in families and schools. And the child who becomes discouraged trying to achieve the goal of power in a positive way can easily find power in a negative approach of rebellion. And they do this by trying to boss around others or by showing them that they can't boss him. And after all, the ability to say no is very powerful. And one of the rules of power in this is the person in a position to say no is the more powerful position. And that's why power struggles are so frustrating for parents. We are bigger, we're smarter, we're more experienced, and we have the authority to decide what's in the best interest of our family. But even so, we can't make our children do what we want. They have the free will to choose. And if they choose to resist us, our frustration can easily turn into anger. And that feeling of anger is a major clue that you're in a power struggle and that your child has chosen a rebellious approach to their goal of power. And the other clue is that power-driven children are very persistent and they often respond to correction by continuing the misbehavior. Often it's in open defiance. So, for example, no, you can't make me. And we're going to cover anger and power struggles in more depth later on in this lesson. Then we have the parents who tend towards the doormat style, and they often make the mistake of giving in to the rebellious children. And these parents want to avoid confrontation. So they give in to the child's really unreasonable demands and refusals, and the payoff is that the child gets their way. Look how powerful I am. I made daddy give in. Parents who tend towards the dictator style often fight fire with fire. So words such as, oh, no, you can't make me. Those are fighting words to an autocratic parent. It hooks their own desire for power by triggering thoughts such as, I've got to be the one in control here. I'm the parent. And of course, oh, yes, I can. So they meet the child's challenge with a show of force and they wind up fighting, either verbally or with punishment. And ironically, the more you fight with a child over power, the more she perceives that child is winning. After all, even if she eventually does what you want, say after a spanking or other punishment, she still has the secondary payoff of knowing that she made you angry. And that in and of itself is very powerful. Look how powerful my rebellion makes me. I made daddy so mad. So what we can do to avoid paying it off is refuse to fight or give in and sidestep the power struggle. And we can also give choices instead of orders. So expressing confidence in our child's ability to make decisions for themselves. Take the sail out of your child's wind. In other words, call a timeout and excuse yourself until you both calm down. Let your child make mistakes and experience the consequences without lecturing or humiliating them. Hold family meetings to involve your child in making decisions that affect the whole family. Use family enrichment activities, communication skills, and encouragement to build a more cooperative relationship. And we can use the FLAC method to diffuse the power struggle and set consequences only when necessary. And then we can set a good example of how to use anger positively. Revenge is one of the oldest and the most primitive emotions for human behavior. It can also be one of the most counterproductive. So it grows out of the goal of protection. You hurt me, if I hurt you back, you're going to think twice before hurting me again. And that seems to be the thinking that produces this behavior. And because revenge does often work as a deterrent, children and adults alike continue to use it. The problem is that revenge usually leads to more revenge in an ever-escalating cycle of hurt and retaliation. And this escalation can be seen in the violence of our society. People often take revenge for either real or imagined injustices through acts of violence. So while kids with high self-esteem and courage are really able to pursue their goals of protection through assertiveness, like standing up for themselves, or justice, like using legal channels to address their grievances, or forgiveness, like clearing the slate so that neither side feels the need to retaliate. Those with lower self-esteem and more discouragement often resort to revenge. So within a family, we often see how an escalation in power struggle can easily lead to the negative approach of revenge, especially if the child feels that the parent has won too many battles or they've hurt the child in the process. And the child decides that the best form of protection is to hurt back. And while this seldom results in physical violence, the child still has ways to hurt the parent. In fact, it's this feeling of hurt that is the clue that the child is pursuing revenge. And because our autocratic parenting tradition tells us that when children hurt us, we should punish them more, it's an escalating revenge cycle. And because the parents want to see their children survive and thrive, we can really never win this revenge war. All children have to do to hurt their parents is fail. And they can fail at school, they can fail with peers, they can fail with drugs, with sex, and ultimately they can just fail at life. And the result each time is a parent left hurting. And when children seek to protect themselves by getting revenge, they're usually feeling very discouraged. And when we are retaliating with punishment and put downs, we discourage them further and confirm their belief that they have the right to hurt us back. And the more that we hurt them, the more they want to hurt us back. So what do we do to avoid paying it off? Well, one, stop the revenge cycle. Instead of just stubbornly demanding that your child change, we can call a ceasefire. And we can remember that no child is born bad or mean. And when a child acts in a bad or a mean way, they're hurting inside. So we have to do whatever we can to stop whatever is hurting the child. If it's your behavior, take a new approach. If someone else is hurting them, support them while they're handling it themselves, or take more direct action if needed. Sometimes a vengeful child is hurting because they have a misconception about how life ought to work. And this is the notion of a perceived injustice rather than a real one. So talk with your child about fairness and help them learn to see things from a different perspective. And we could also use the FLAC method and other skills for handling the power struggles, and that can be useful in redirecting a revenge-seeking child. And we can also work on strengthening our relationship with family, enrichment activities, active communication, and encouragement, and other support skills. And children who become extremely discouraged, they may sink so low in their own self-esteem that they're going to give up trying. So their belief becomes, I can't succeed, so I'm going to stop trying, and then I can't fail. So they develop an apathy that often leaves the parents and the educators feeling hopeless. And sometimes they adopt a I don't care attitude that shields them from the pain of losing, but also prevents them from growing and thriving. And these children may become truant from school or fail to do assignments and avoid peers. And in the teen years, we have tobacco, alcohol, and other drugs that becomes a way for them to avoid the challenges of life as they find temporary relief from their own discouragement. So it's sometimes our own perfectionism that contributes to the child's really long, slow ride into undue avoidance. When we focus excessively on mistakes, when nothing ever seems to be good enough for us, when all we talk about is, his great potential, the child might give up trying altogether. And for other children, it may be a special need or a challenge that makes success more difficult. And without the support and encouragement of caring adults, they may fall further and further behind and become so discouraged that they give up. And once a child has chosen avoidance, we might make the mistake of giving up on him, or write him off as hopeless, and stop making an effort to help. Or we yell and we scream and we humiliate and we punish. Either way, we're sending the message, you're not good enough. And that confirms the child's own evaluation of themselves and justifies the avoidance. So how do we avoid paying it off? Communicate. Communicating to your child that succeed or fail, win or lose, you're glad that they're your child. Your love is unconditional. You can practice patience and offer a lot of encouragement using the bank method to build on your child's strengths. We want to help our child find tasks where they can succeed, which is going to help them gain confidence and improve their self-image. Help our child see that mistakes are for learning and that failure is just a lesson on the road to success. And get them the extra help if they need it, including professional evaluation and counseling if you think that's necessary. So we're going to go over a chart that gives you an overview of the 4 goals of the children's behavior, how and why they approach these goals, and some of the best roles for parents in each set of circumstances. So if the basic goal of the child's action is belonging, then they're either going to use the positive or the negative approach to the goal. It's either going to be contributing, cooperating, or undue attention seeking. And the belief here might be my contributions are recognized, I belong by cooperating, I enjoy human contact. Or it could be I belong only when I'm served or I'm noticed and the world must revolve around me. And so the parent's typical feeling is annoyance here, and the child's response to correction is going to be to stop but start again very soon. So how do we redirect? We encourage, cooperate, acknowledge the child's contributions, Or we can ignore the behavior, give the child full attention at other times, and use logical and natural consequences. Act, don't talk. If the goal of the action is power, the positive approach is independence, assertiveness, and competence. The negative is rebellion. And so if it's a positive, the child's believing I'm able to influence what happens to me, I'm responsible for my life. But if it's the negative rebellion, they may believe I belong only when I'm the boss or when I'm showing you that you can't boss me. And so as parents, we're going to feel angry. And that's going to escalate the behavior, or they're only going to give in only to fight again another day. And so we can allow increasing amounts of freedom, continue to encourage, or we can remove ourselves from the conflict and talk about it later after we cooled off. And don't fight or give in. We can use the FLAC method here. If protection is the goal, the positive approach would be assertiveness, justice, or forgiveness. The negative would be revenge. So if it was positive, the child may believe that they can stand up for themselves and those that they love, they can forgive, and they can even contribute to those who have wronged them. But if it's the negative revenge, they're going to say, I've been hurt, and I'm going to get even by hurting back. And then maybe they're going to learn that they can't get away with hurting me. And the parent's going to feel hurt. And that's going to continue to hurt or escalate the misbehavior. And so as parents, we can express positive feelings, be assertive, and forgive in your own relationships. Or we can refuse to be hurt, withdraw from the conflict, show love to the vengeful child, avoid the temptation to hurt them back. We can also use the FLAC method. And then if the goal is withdraw, it's either going to be appropriate avoidance or inappropriate avoidance. So if it's appropriate, there are times the child's going to believe that there are times when I need to be alone, and there are situations to be left alone. If it's negative, then I'm a failure at everything, leave me alone, expect nothing from me. And the parent is going to feel very helpless, and the child becomes passive, refuses to try, and gives up. So as parents, we can respect the wishes to be alone only in safe situations. Don't press. Later, we can use active communication. And we want to be patient here and find ways to encourage and build skills and use those baby steps.